With the passing of Jesus, the FDMs, the dukes, and the squire duchesses are, quote, forgiving of their sins, as they no longer have to deal with Jesus, Judah, whom is simply the embodiment of Jacob and his laws. Hence why they love Joshua, or Jesus I should say, it's Jesus. They can simply ask for forgiveness instead of the sword of Psalms of the Islamic Moors. Pure mockery to the highest level, for a little season of course. Here's a fastball. What if I told you that the Babylonians, Assyrians, Persians, Chaldeans, for the most part, are in fact just Jacob? Most people would say you're off of that. But hear me out. Who were the clan kings of New Babylon? Nebuchadnezzar, and moreover Nebuchadnezzar II, king of Babylon, right? Who was this clan's father? Let me show you.
And King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba. This giving refers only to the teaching of wisdom. Allah her wish, he cohabited with her, and Nebuchadnezzar was born to her. He later destroyed the temple that had stood 410 years in the territory of the 12 tribes from the Arazal. Aside from what he gave her, gifts and delicacies that are found here and are not in her place.
Okay. So yeah, let's just say it's Babylon. Then what about the Assyrians or the Chaldeans? Look, remember what I said about Clan David being the King of Kings? Lord of Lords, the Prester John, the one every king on earth has to pay tribute to, taxes, that is. And now that you know about Nebuchadnezzar II, how many sons did Clan David have? A lot, right? Many unnamed.
King of Kings was an imperial title employed primarily by monarchs based in the Indian subcontinent, commonly associated with historically known as Persia, especially the Achaemenid and Sasanian empires. The title was originally introduced during the Middle Assyrian Empire by King Tukulti-Ninurta I, and was subsequently used in a number of different kingdoms and empires, including the aforementioned Persia, various Hellenic kingdoms, India, Armenia, Georgia, and Ethiopia. The title is commonly seen as equivalent to that of emperor, both titles outranking that of king in prestige, stemming from the late antique Roman and Eastern Roman emperors who saw the Shahanshahs of the Sasanian Empire as their equals. The rulers of the Ethiopian Empire used the title of Negusi Negist, literally King of Kings, which was officially translated as Emperor. Sultan of Sultans is the sultanic equivalent of King of Kings, and similarly, Kagan can mean Khan of Khans. Later, lesser versions, Amir al-Umara, Emir of Emirs, and Beylebi, Bey of Beys, appeared. In Judaism, Melech Malchei Hamalakim, the King of Kings, came to be used as a name of God. King of Kings is also used in reference to Jesus Christ several times in the Bible, notably in the first epistle to Timothy and twice in the book of Revelation. Ancient India. In ancient India, Sanskrit language words such as Rajadhiraja and Maharadhira are among the terms that were used for employing the title of the King of Kings. Remember allegorical timeline. Commonly known as Darius the Great, was the third King of Kings of the Achaemenid Empire, Assyria and Babylon. The title King of Kings was first introduced by the Assyrian king Tukulti-Ninurta I as Tsar Sarani. The title carried a literal meaning in that Tsar was traditionally simply the ruler of a city-state. With the formation of the Assyrian Empire, the Assyrian rulers installed themselves as kings over an already present system of kingship in these city-states, becoming literal King of Kings. Following Tukulti-Ninurta's reign, the title was occasionally used by monarchs of Assyria and Babylon. King, if kings as Sasarani, was among the many titles of the last Neo-Babylonian king Nabonidus.
You get it? Again, David won. I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels. He shall build an house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Forever. Remember Solomon attacking his brother Adonai-Hawa? Remember Absalom attacked his brother clan Amnon? Remember Absalom gathered a massive army to go against his father Nebuchadnezzar II attacking Judah and wiping them off the face of the earth, but only leaving the royals His siblings alone, such as a clan Caleb Aniel, who coincidentally looks exactly like their parent, David. By the way, the Samaritans are supposedly descendants of the Northern Kingdom in the New Testament, yet it was supposedly largely taken away by way of Jacob in captivity to Jacob? You see the Babel here? Literal Babylonians. And for the Chaldeans, technically Abraham, Jacob, and Edom are Chaldeans. We are just a different nation from them rather. Now back to Jesus, the Son. I want you to watch this painting. Have you ever heard of the Strait of Anion? It's next to Terra Incognita and Quivira. It's a place, a sea or a river which borders much of Canaan, Canada, I guess Alaska today, you know. I'll say this allegorically. You see, back in those days, there were people that, let's just say, really like the sun. Like really like worshipping the sun. To the point of wanting to merge with it. To be with Jesus, let's say. You see, the problem is the sun or the suns in the sky, which the suns, if you don't know, the reason we keep getting this multi-sun or moon effect is because it's somewhat a reflection or a point of light refracting and reflecting off a vapor canopy. Alternative plasma, I guess. You normally have the viewer's perspective sun, the sun behind the sun, and the sun behind or next to that sun. The red and the normal orange-blue sun. That's also why we get these sundog effects. The problem with worshipping these two suns is, well, it's not the real suns. It's basically just a projection. Worshipping it would in fact be stupid, wouldn't you say? So where is the sun projecting from? And that is where we get this. This is the real sun, the toroidal heart, not the one above your head. This sun projects those suns, and the moon, which is simply the earth. A plasma version of the real deal, producing a cool light for the moon, that is. Showing you the continent's positions in a given area of Earth. With that said, there will always be very curious people, and the crazy sun worshippers that would like to see the sun, if you know what I mean. They would go past the Sun Kings, the Prester Johns, with halos, the Davids with the castle, that is. Go up the strait to the area where the hole is, and go and meet Jesus of the Black Sun.
Amongst the North American Indians, this appellation is similarly preserved as the name of the solar god, Jesus. Adonis, Adonis belt, or Adonai, translated from the Hebrew. How easy. Esau is the translation from Jah, Yah, 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 or Yeh, to yes, Jez, or Jesus.
Burning alive from his intensity, you would think Jesus is in the air, but the painting is really showing you the suns that they are looking at are the projected suns. The latter is actually going downward into the real sun, hence the fire and the people falling in a lower location on the right. That's sun worship for you. Revisionist history, I guess. In the context of Nebuchadnezzar II, Nebo or Caleb's statue, is one statue, one nation of Jacob, made up of many of the tribes. Nebo David, being the golden head of the tribe, that is, David, king of the earth, is not like these crazy doomer Duke preachers yapping their lying mouths off about some crazy conspiracy about multiple nations and some big attack against Jacob. Because that statue is Jacob, the millennial reign of Christ for you New Testament followers. What you should be more concerned about is the fact that when we start dealing with Babylon and her timeline, things ironically get confusing. The Bible basically breaks up. What the Dukes want you to believe is that Babylon, Jacob, ended. But how and did it?
2 Kings, chapter 24. And Jehoiachin the king of Judah went out to the king of Babylon, he and his mother and his servants and his princes and his officers. 13. And he carried out thence all the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house, and cut in pieces all the vessels of gold which Solomon king of Israel had made in the temple of the Lord, as the Lord had said. 14. And he carried away all Jerusalem, and all the princes, and all the mighty men of valor, even 10,000 captives, and all the craftsmen and smiths. 15. And he carried away Jehoiachin to Babylon, and the king's mother, and the king's wives, and his officers, and the mighty of the land. Those carried he into captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. 17. And the king of Babylon made Mattaniah his father's brother king in his stead, and changed his name to Zedekiah. Chapter 25. 1. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon came, he and all his host, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it. 5. And the army of the Chaldees pursued after the king, and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. 6. So they took the king, and brought him up to the king of Babylon to Riblah. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. 8. And in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem. 10. And all the army of the Chaldees, that were with the captain of the guard, brake down the walls of Jerusalem round about. 21. And the king of Babylon smote them, and slew them at Riblah, in the land of Hamath. So Judah was carried away out of their land. 25. But it came to pass in the 7th month, that Ishmael the son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama, of the seed royal, came, and 10 men with him, and smote Gedaliah, that he passed on, and the Jews and the Chaldees that were with him at Mizpah. 26. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies, arose and came to Egypt. Allegorical Egypt bondage. Jeremiah 42 verse 16. 16. Then it shall come to pass, that the sword, which ye feared, shall overtake you there in the land of Egypt, and the famine, whereof ye were afraid, shall follow close after you there in Egypt. 17. So shall it be with all the men that set their faces to go into Egypt, to sojourn there. Allegory. All men will be slain in Egypt by the squires, or rather actually slain by the sword. Keep that in mind. All right, let's go way back again. Before David's Babylon. Father Judah had supposedly had 2 sons from Tamar, the supposed Canaanite woman. Correct. Question. Why don't we know much about Zerah, if you don't know who Zerah is? Genesis 38, verse 27. And it came to pass in the time of her travail, that, behold, twins were in her womb. 28. And it came to pass, when she travailed, that the one put out his hand. 29. And it came to pass, as he drew back his hand, that, behold, his brother came out. 30. And afterward came out his brother, that had the scarlet thread upon his hand. Notice both ancestors' names are after the colon. Right. Notice that they are twins. Remember what I mentioned about the ever so often results of IVF. Twins. Notice Zara is marked by a red or rather scarlet band around the hand. I wonder where we have heard of a red twin before. They also identified that said red twin with hairiness, especially on the hands. The first Zerah is listed in Genesis 36, 13 and 17 as a grandson of Esau. One of Esau's wives was named Basemath, who was the daughter of Esau's uncle Ishmael, making her Esau's cousin, Genesis 36, 35. Basemath and Esau had a son named Ruel. Ruel was the father of Zerah. After the colon again, notice almost all mentions of clan, Zerah, are after a colon throughout the text. As we mentioned before, Jacob didn't consider Freemartins as a, quote, son of Jacob, but something else. As we discussed before, dukedom, less than the biological sons. The same somewhat goes for the daughters. Hence why we don't have a tribe of Diana from Jacob to make a 13 tribe, as the woman is just a phenotype, not the actual soul or rather seed. The fact that they ignore Zerah like this could only mean one thing, in addition to the clues given. You're probably wondering why we are bringing this up. Look, according to the text, during the time of Babylon, the line of David is deceased, no more in existence. Zedekiah line is, quote, slain and his sons and most other jacks. What many people don't want to bring up is the entire line of Jacob is no more after Babylon. So much so, we end up with supposed and strange stories like this one. Cheated of their birthright, the descendants of Zerah separated from the children of Israel soon after the Exodus. This separation explains why so few references to Zerah appear in God's word. Some of the children of Zerah went north to Greece. Others went to Troy, near the Dardanelles, which, by the way, bears the name of Zerah's fifth son, Darda. After Troy's fall to the Achaeans Greeks, a group of Zerahites under the leadership of Brutus migrated to Britain via Malta. In England, they founded New Troy, which the Romans much later renamed Londinium, now London. Other Zerahites settled down in Ireland, after residing for a time in Spain, where they founded the city of Saragossa, literally the city of Zerah. By the time of David, a princely clan of Zerahites was established as Ireland's royal family, ruling a part of the tribe of Dan, the Tautha de Danann, that is, tribe of Dan of Irish legend, which had also settled there. Therefore, because of the Zerahite monarchy, the scepter did not depart from Judah with the dethroning of Zedekiah and the death of his sons. However, this fact in itself does not address the question of David's monarchy, which God said was to be everlasting. They remained separate monarchies, God having established David's much later than Zerah's. The Davidic monarchy was not linked to its Zerahite counterpart. Hence, we cannot claim that God fulfilled his promise of a perpetual throne to David through the Zerahite monarchy. To resolve this issue, God connected the two monarchies. To see how, we must return to the time of Jerusalem's fall. The Babylonians appointed Gedaliah as Nebuchadnezzar's vassal to rule Judah. Jeremiah 41 relates how Ishmael, who was of the royal family, with verse 1, assassinated Gedaliah, verse 2, probably out of jealousy over the power the Babylonians had bestowed on him. Ishmael took a number of prisoners, verse 10, probably as bargaining chip should his schemes go sour. And sour they went. Ishmael was forced to flee to Ammon, verse 15. His prisoners escaped. Verse 10 mentions something about those prisoners the casual reader might miss. Among them were some VIPs. Then Ishmael carried away captive all the rest of the people who were in Mizpah, the king's daughters. While none of his sons survived Jerusalem's fall, Zedekiah was survived by at least 2 daughters. One of these daughters had recently married an Irish prince of the line of Judah through Zerah. In fact, the marriage took place during Or shortly before the siege of Jerusalem. Thus, Zedekiah's daughter, who was a descendant of Perez, married a man descended through Zerah. Both had Judah as a common ancestor. The word deputy literally means hand. In modern idiom, Pethahiah was the Persian king's right-hand man. As strange as it may seem, several generations after Jeremiah's day, there was a highly placed Jew, that is, someone of Judah in the Persian court, whose task it was to look after the Jews in Palestine. Freemartin babbling. First thing, Clan Zerah are Freemartins. You can hear the jealousy of Edom in that first line. Cheated from their birthright. These estrogen demons are so cringe. What we're actually hearing here is option 1. Some of the daughters of Zedekiah transitioned to Freemartins because there were no mans. Option 2. The daughters went and married the dukedom of Judah. Option 3. The daughters were just and allegory for the skin cells of Zedekiah being used to attempt to resurrect the line of David via IVG, as mentioned before. Option 4. All the men on earth are gone, and only the Freemartins, biological women and cuck squires are alive, and remain in small numbers of Jacob. Option 5. This story is all fake or all of the above.
Therefore, no, the line of supposed David is allegorically gone, but isn't, because the royal class that Nebuchadnezzar II has, his brothers and his sisters, meaning that something happened in Babylon, Assyria, Judah. They were the ones attacking the northern kingdoms. It's just one large earth-wide seed of Jacob empire. But yet during Babylon's confusing time period, it's indicating that the timeline is gone, and they had to remove themselves to islands to hide. You see, the world did end in Babylon. In confusion, let me ask you, since we are dealing with in the gender inversion of Edom and Eve, what do you think this Babylon is? In South Asia, Hidra are transgender, intersectional, or eunuch people who live in communities that follow a kinship system known as Guru Shela system. Hithra is officially recognized as a third gender throughout countries in the Indian subcontinent, being considered neither completely male nor female. Hithra's identity originates in ancient Hinduism and evolved during the Delhi Sultan 1206 to 1526 and Mongol Empire 1526 to the 17th century. Hithra used to be translated in English as eunuch or hermaphrodite, and human rights activists have sought to include Hithras as transgender. Remember, 3 Indias. It's the same Jacobean Empire. What were these biologicals doing? The Americas is Asia, or rather Far East in that sense. They were transgressing Allahwa, the Yabba, the law of the Elohims, such as Clan Solomon, who were directly threatened to have his street or kingdom cut down, causing the northern kingdom to part from them. Transgression of the law, marrying strange squires and castrato, quote, women, doing all manner of necromancy, making demon Freemartins their man's Mercury. That is, Mercury, neither solid nor liquid, men of flesh. By the way, the Talmud came around the time of Babylon, shocker, hence the term Babylonian Talmud or the Talmudic Babylonians. They, the Japhetic, the Khazars, were supposedly converted by the Jacks at around that same time. Therefore, all these activities are happening at the same time period. This would explain Maccabees 1, chapter 3, verses 48. Then there was Nebo and his statue. And there we have it. For as much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it breaks in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the statue being Jacob, the harlot, mixing his seed with squires, whoring himself, or selves, out to these wannabe Egyptians. So of course, the Elohims did what they did. Throw a rock at us. They cut down Nebo's world tree, as in Daniel 4:14, the end of the line of Jacob and the other biologicals, the giant trees being a representation, the biological man's empire or phallus is cut off, such as in Ezekiel 31, the Great Assyria, the trees of Eden being cut down. In such a case, remember that Eve lost her phallus, her Leviathan. As such, man Adam lost his empire of Eden and was cast out to hell. So those mega trees are gone, that is of Eden. The ones bigger than these are lost. And now these are lost, leaving the earth bald and barren, as in Isaiah 3:16. Now you know. Odds are, from these allegories, the daughter of Judah somehow survived. This would explain the Catholic thing with Mary being both mother and sister, man-girlfriend I should say, to Jesus, Jacob. This would explain John the Baptist or the Prester Johns, the Solomons, losing their head, the line being cut off, and Isis or mother, sister, and wife having to remake and reattach us, the biologicals of Jacob, in Egypt. Hence you see all these symbols in the Caribbean.
Real bad man.
Where did all these Jakes go? Where did all the slave owners and royals go? That's right, to Egypt, as an allegory of course. As you can tell by now, the Bible involved a phallus, seed sect of man.
Genesis 3:15. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, cutting off Eve's phallus and causing her to have enmity against man, and man Adam's phallus. Laying down with the new Eve, then causes her to mainly make biological man or women, rather than what Eve used to be, which are Freemartins. Laying down with new Eve as a biological man is an insult to Eve, and Eve the Freemartin that is Lilith. The act of laying down with her is effectively an insult from the man-angels. The act of inserting the sword, let's say, into the wound, rather than letting the Freemartin insert her sword into your wound. Not only that, she is then punished for not having children or for having children. A large majority of the past and current conflicts, especially if you read Jasher, were caused by Freemartins, her seed, as some attack against the biological man or man Jacob. Fact. This is why the Bible constantly brings up seed, phallus, head, tent, and on. It's always been about this topic. Man versus her seed, the serpents versus dragons. The angels still maintain this punishment dealt to Eve today. That should tell you this topic is always on their mind, even for a biological Eve. Hence all the girls running around with their bald heads, long legs, and no necks.
Hence all the phallic mercury, etheric antenna and towers, all the domes with the crown formations at the top of the old buildings, now gone, and not in use by the Confederate Edomites. And for the most part, the protecting of the Ark of the Covenant with the two cherubs representing the biological man's body and his seed, the body of Solomon's temple, or golden head or phallus and seed. And with that, we can now identify that everything was lost in this comet impact. This would explain the mini ice age. Like, bro, Hova was not joking around. Now with this also exposes these paintings, which to bluntly state are just large language model generations by these Japhites at the time in Babylon or afterwards with Magog and Gog's dukes. Most of these either have leprosy or are Freemartins and leprosy. And the amount of copy pasta you see about is ridiculously obvious now. Ask yourself, where did he find the time to do this? I mean, this is a lot. This is a lot of art. And yeah, I'm sure some of these were done during the Maccabees incident, the image of the heathen stuff, but it's just like, this is a lot. Here's another case of just what appears to be as a perfect edit, quote unquote. Of course it's not, it's obvious. Look at the face. The entire person on the left is just inserted in. And it's two girls, by the way. Look at that hand. I assume whatever model they're using also suffers that problem. Yeah, see that odd outline? Yeah, it's just like, think of the psychology of this now. You're buying generated art, and then they're listing this as authentic old world art when it's not. A lot. Very androgynous looking, highly effeminate. One of the other just blatant giveaways is the childish looking art. You know, like the Aztec, the Mayan stuff. Oh, and that stuff, the Chinese stuff, when you see all those mountains, it's pretty much the destroyed tree, not the living tree. In addition to the fact that a leprous tree martin shows up in many of these Japanese or Chinese paintings, or the AX Central Free Martin animals are there. They are made or recently generated or edited. The trees should be alive, not mountains, and the castles and cities should be 2 times bigger. The environment in these paintings are always destroyed, once you can see tiny trees about. Let's think of this for a bit. The old Jacks are able to make Vimanas, megacities, and or ships. Yet their art on a person-to-person basis is childish. Last I recall, the Greek Danites only like pure handsomeness for everything they see and do. The body of a biological, broad man to the old Jacks was and is the perfect form of art, was it not? Their buildings had to be handsome, bro. Their buildings. They took it that seriously. And then you see this Amazonian orphan art laying about in the mud. Ugh. The amount of times you go back in history and see the same names for the builders of many of these old buildings and the amount of alleged fires. I mean, bro, they painted in people to make the place look normal. Like in these old images, it's like, bro, these girls were so downright degenerate. They stole mummies from over here in the Americas and brought it back to Africa. It's sad to say. You will also have a lot of Amazonian edited buildings from before. whole lot of wood. A whole lot of wood and geopalma plaster or cast. Preset, prefabricated onto bricks. Normally the inverts like to draw your eyes to a bunch of these silly little world attractions and pass them off as being real and not made recently in the 17 and 1800s or even sooner than that. Please don't fall for that nonsense. Look closely at a number of these sites closely and you will see the original structure that has been destroyed, the geopalma that has been reheated and liquefied. And the Minecraft-like edit for small people. The buildings without plumbing and toilets. The small bricks these orphan girls like to hide behind. The geopalma cast, where they steal from another site and build up in a new location and say it's something else. Most of these other places also got destroyed by the events of the World War II to hide a lot of these real things. In addition to the fact, a lot of the real things are mainly underground and are built upon and hidden. Theater of the Dukes. Like I said, they, the dukes and duchesses, know it's an act. Back to the New Testament. Why do you think many of these duke preachers that are in every corner, it seems, keep bringing up the rapture? Remember Revelations 20 and 8. If you were to believe this Amazonian colon commenter, Magog and Gog gets zapped in verses 9. As in, the squires, for the most part, are raptured when the dome, Edom, or the vapor canopy is lifted, opening up the real firmament, where you see the great white throne and him who sits on it. The plasma directly as in old Egypt with the Freemartin firstborns, the plasma will target the swires or Japhites, ripping them into the quote-unquote atmosphere of Mars, Mercury, and Venus. The crest being the Freemartins. The Egyptian dukes were raptured by the angel, or if you want to go into scientific growth, the sentient plasma fried the firstborn Freemartins. The lamb spirit wiped across the door would be the fact that they had biological women, or were from biological women. Her monthly cycle, her red spirit.
The Elohims specifically mentions and targets the firstborn because they are dupedom. As in Edom, the firstborn, while Jacob comes last. The man-angels are saying only the biologicals will survive the coming plasma event or angel attacks. Also note, the lamb has to be a biological male lamb, not the Freemartin variant, like we have today. A biological male. This symbolizes being a pure genetic man, or rather lamb of Jacob, the white woolly-haired lamb. Remember what the biological mans of Egypt were doing in mass, marrying swires and castratos and raising kids, goats, not lambs. Why is this encoded? Why not just say they're kid goats, or rather the young dupedom would be raptured? Edom has edited the books, that's why.
The woman is the full moon, while the crescent, supposed new moon today, is a trans or the duke moon, hence why the Freemartins got targeted, but not the parents. They didn't follow the full moon Shabbat. It's so funny sometimes hearing a lot of these new trans Testament Christians go on about Jesus. Now ask yourself, what is Jesus coming back to do exactly? Oh, that's right, he's coming back to murk the supposed enemies of the biological swarthy mans of Jacob and restore his seed, his church, correct? And then they will be like, yeah, but they then avoid the part where the devil, the Freemartins, are put in hell in their own made-up book of the New Testament. Like, bro, there are only 12 gates to be sealed. Where are they getting these other talking points from? And then you realize it's just pure babble. It's just about mocking the Jacobs and the biological mans. It's got nothing to do with facts or logic. This is why they believe in the modern Catholic heliocentrism. Yes, it was made and pushed by the church. You can look that up yourself. Can you even think on what many of the biologicals are going to say when they realize they have been deceived into marrying squires, thinking it's normal, not knowing what they are and what they were doing till Hawa and David pointed it out. Man, they will be furious and disgusted. Before I leave you, do remember biological men are rare. You definitely can find a bro, of course, that depends on your area, however not as rare as biological women. Biological women are very rare, in terms of pure ones that is, the ones that stay as women, let's just say. You'll probably interact with 1 to 3 in your entire life, depending on your area and if mother allocates them. Yeah, it's that serious. Mother doesn't want Egypt being run over, if you catch my meaning. Just like back then. Now it's best to break her rules and only focus on getting and dealing with mainly biologicals, if you can. For me, I stopped playing most games with free martins and FDMs in it, period. And that's most games, by the way. And one of the reasons why I stopped was when I realized I couldn't properly focus on what a biological woman looks like in my heart or mind in that sense. You're probably like, huh? No, I mean really, every time I thought of it, something or someone would distract me. What I thought would be immediately ripped away from my mind. It's only when I think on a biological woman walking, mincing basically, when trying to visualize it by brute force without distraction, the image takes on a mind of its own and quickly vanishes. It's only on this concept that this happens. It's highly strange, as if someone or something doesn't want me to see it. And if it's that serious, it's best not to even focus or invest too heavily on anything related to dukes and duchesses. These inverts are clearly attention whores and want you to only see ugly as normal, only.
You sure about that?
Hate the dukedom forever.
What?
This verse is contradicted by the verse behind it. Thou shalt not seek their peace nor their prosperity all thy days, forever. Not including most other books that are very clearly against Edom, which is most if not all of the Bible. The obvious reason these verses exist is the verse below. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of the Lord in their 3rd generation. That 3rd generation, which is an allegorical number, would be the biological Mons, that are resurrected from the Edom after Babylon, or rather past Jacob is destroyed. I could say Zerah's line, the grapes that are left behind, but again there's no proof of that. Here's an example in Obadiah. It literally states Edom will be cut off forever, then goes on to address the fact that Edom and the rest of the dukedom from the Confederacy, as mentioned before, have been shipping in squires in mass to lower biological Jacob's population size back then and now. In verse 11, it bluntly states that the free martin Edomites watched it happen and was a part of it, knowing fully well that Jacob was making demons children in mass and giving his possessions to squires. Clan Solomon much and all his horses.
As they cannot be saved, and as they hate biologicals with all their heart. Never forget this event. And that was the last chapter of this series.